This is Dr. Sarah Lockyer. She's a forensic anthropologist and casualty identification specialist with the Canadian Armed Forces. She led the effort last year to select and exhume the remains of Newfoundland's unknown soldier from a cemetery in France. The soldier was reinterred in this special tomb at the base of the Newfoundland National War Memorial. Lockyer also used DNA and other forensic methods to identify the remains of Private John Lambert, a Royal Newfoundland Regiment soldier from St. John's who was killed in battle during the First World War. Lambert's remains were discovered during an archaeological dig in April 2016 and were buried 3 years ago in a Commonwealth War Graves Commission cemetery in Belgium. Lockyer was back in St. John's this week for an event at Memorial University. After describing the years-long process of identifying Lambert's remains, she surprised attendees with this announcement.
I have now been informed that 4 Newfoundlanders have been found overseas, and they need to be identified.
The Commonwealth War Graves Commission has confirmed the discovery, but that's as much information as they're releasing because the identification process is still in the very early stages. So we don't know when or where the remains were found, how they were discovered, and what evidence exists to indicate the remains belong to soldiers from Newfoundland. In cases such as Private Lambert and the unknown soldier, this was a key piece of forensics. Newfoundland Regiment soldiers wore this distinctive brass shoulder flashing during the First World War with the letters NFLD. Lockyer is also hungry for more information about this latest discovery.
If they say they're Newfoundlanders, it's highly likely because something with the word Newfoundland was found on it.
Roughly 800 of the Newfoundlanders who died during the First World War have no known grave, and most of them were killed in France and Belgium between 1914 and 1918. It's common for human remains to be discovered on these former battlefields, whether during planned searches or other unrelated activities, such as construction. Lockyer is currently working to identify the skeletal remains of 42 Canadian soldiers linked to the First World War, and she's confident that number is about to increase to 46.
It has to go through Commonwealth War Graves Commission's research process, and then it comes to us, and it just hasn't come to us yet. So we can't really start anything until we know the location of where the human remains were found to start trying to figure out who they could potentially be. But the goal, yes, absolutely. With any of the skeletal human remains that are discovered that are possibly Canadian, the goal is always to identify them.
DNA is a critical tool in identifying the skeletal remains of unknown soldiers, and Lockyer is encouraging descendants of missing soldiers with no known grave to register with the Directorate of History and Heritage of the Department of National Defense.
We really like to identify those individuals, and the more families who register, the easier it's going to be.
There's a strong spirit of remembrance in Newfoundland and Labrador, and Sarah Lockyer says she plans to use that spirit to motivate her as she works to identify these fallen soldiers. Terry Roberts, CBC News, St. John's.